so that you have access to the recording. And I'm here with my new buddy, who said I can call him Amph. And for those of you that are watching this, maybe you're newer to my audience. My name is Kimanzi Constable, but everybody calls me Z. So if you agree to be a friendly person, you could call me Z, and Amph is already friendly, so we're good. So first, I appreciate you taking the time to put that great answer in the post that I had where I was giving away this session. And then I appreciate you staying up, because tell us, what time is it where you're at?
It's now just 2 minutes past midnight here in Sydney.
2 minutes past midnight in Sydney, Australia.
That's
So
right.
you're up. You normally be sleeping, huh?
Yeah, on a Sunday, day before
Cool.
work.
So if you're joining us live, drop a live in the comments so that we know that you are here. We can acknowledge you. If you are watching this in the replay, hashtag replay, and so that we can acknowledge you on the replay. But what we're going to do is we're going to do this the way that I would normally do a coaching session. So Amph is an entrepreneur. He also has a role. He has some goals that he wants to accomplish. He wants to book speaking. He wants to book corporate consulting. He wants to do some of the things that I talked about. How did we get connected?
It was, I think it might have been, I'm thinking it was Rob, but I'm not sure. Like it was a while ago. So a mutual contact.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. So let's talk about, what are your goals? Like in an ideal world, what would your life and your business look like? What does that look like?
So in an ideal world, I would be essentially doing work that makes an impact, that also specifically in the world of education. So for me, teaching is my passion. So I've been teaching all my life, never went down the path of becoming a teacher and educator in that traditional sense. But regardless of what role I was in, I've always been coaching and teaching people, and just something that people, I'm just thinking back, something that someone said to me years ago was, you take something that's complex, because I was in the world of IT. I worked for HP for about 6 years, and they just said, you take something complex and you really simplify that, and you're able to explain it. And that's something that I do now in my marketing roles. And so for me, it'd be spending most of my time teaching and educating, creating training programs, delivering them on site, once we can do that again, but also doing them online. And so that's kind of the ideal role for me. And then working with products and developing, an ecosystem that allows me to do that. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm also writing about it. So, writing in publications, sharing my knowledge around what's new and what's working in the world of education. The shift from going from in-office to remote has been a significant one. And, about 6 months before that happened, I had already launched a summit, which was called Remote Business Summit, which was actually all about teaching people how to hire, but also how to train and how to work with remote workers, right? Little did I know that 6 months later that COVID would hit, and now this whole thing was in high demand by a lot of companies, trying to understand, okay, how do we navigate that transition? Right. So for me, it'd be teaching, it'd be making, from a salary or income perspective, I'd be six-figure salary. The business itself would probably be, if we're talking about 50%, profit sort of ballpark, then the business would be doing double that in revenue. And so that would be.
To recap, what he's saying is he wants to be at least $10,000 a month, but more than likely, because he's talking about the profit that actually comes from that, it'd be more 20,000 a month is where Amph wants to be.
Correct.
Okay. And then you would like to incorporate publications, speaking, corporate consulting, because you do have a good corporate topic, as especially right now, like now is the time to strike while the iron's hot. But then you also have this role. What is your technical term for the job that you have?
Right. So the role I'm in is learning and community lead for a company called Bean Ninjas, which is a online bookkeeping service for remote companies, particularly e-commerce. So we serve 6-figure and 7-figure e-commerce businesses, and we help them to get profitable and to really understand their numbers.
So you have your side hustle that you're building, and then you also have a job that you're doing.
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons why, like, people wonder, well, how did you pick the person that you picked? I actually picked two people. One of them, Cherise, she couldn't be on because she had church. I wanted to do this with two people, but the way that I picked was I wanted to look at somebody that is, I guess, the typical person, because in the entrepreneurial space, you know what's happening? A lot of people do have a job and they're building a hustle on the side. Some people acknowledge that, like I saw here, Bernard, my friend here, Bernard Hayes joined us, Bernard Hayes joined us, and I know, I'm pretty sure he's in that situation. No, I'm thinking of a different Bernard. But I know a lot of people are in that situation and they don't want to acknowledge it online. Like, it's, you know, you got a job on the side, you're trying to keep it secret, and that's not from a place of authenticity. So I think we need to have more real conversations about that. All right, so let's do this. So when it comes to building this kind of a business, there's a framework that I heard at a conference that I was at that I love. And it's a very simple framework. It's stabilize, optimize, and then expand. So in the stabilization phases, which is kind of where I see you now, that's where you get your income to that level that you want to be at, that kind of base level income. So if it's 5,000 consistently, 6,000 consistently, whatever it is, consistent revenue coming in from predictable sources. That's one. It also means having established foundation. So that means your website, your social media presence, and what you're sending to your email list. It means having that in line. It means your branding and messaging, getting all of that in line so that it's optimized. And then once you have that in line, then you can start going after other opportunities. So let's look at first, this is your thing, right? This is RBS Magazine. So
Right.
Tell us how this was born.
So yeah, as I mentioned last year, I took some time out from working in my role at Bean Ninjas to actually launch a summit, right? So one of the things I wanted to explore was how do you pull together, 25 experts, get them in a room online, and then have that deliver a ton of value around this idea of remote business and the virtual workforce, because I saw Bean Ninjas itself has been running for 5 years now and is a completely distributed team, right? So we have 15 staff all over the world. And so I've been, and the way I got into Bean Ninjas initially was they were one of my initial clients when I ran a content agency for a couple of years, right? So I'm well versed with working with outsourcing people from overseas and being in this remote environment. And before that, if we go back to 2006, when I was working for Hewlett Packard, I was part of the initial group of people from Sydney who went to India, and we basically globalized our department. And so that was something that I saw back then was something that was going to happen in a big way. And I didn't know that it was going to be, in terms of the remote workforce, it would be what it is now. But I launched that summit with the blessing of my CEO, and she was one of the experts that I brought on to speak on the summit. Okay, so that went well. I had a team of four, three team, and then one VA. They helped us to put that together over a 6-month period. We had about 500 registrants. And then the funny thing was, as soon as the event was over, people started emailing me and saying, "Hey, like, what's next?" Right? We love what you're teaching here. We got a ton of value from the summit, and what's the next step from here? All right. So that's when I knew, let's consider that a validation. So I knew that the market was interested in this topic, and it was a hot topic for the timing. And so then I thought about, okay, well, what can we do? And now, if you've never done a summit before, it is a ton of work, right? Like, it literally, you know, we did it with a team of 4, but I could have easily have done it with a team of 8, and done it much better, right? So what I decided was, okay, look, I'm actually quite happy in my role with being Ninjas, and as you say, stabilizing was part of my thought process, and I've actually in discussion with the team around what does my role look like. I actually want to stay on with the company. It's not like I want to jump ship anytime soon, because my role is evolving into this education role, which is definitely my wheelhouse. And then it's looking at, okay, well, how do we build into the future? Okay. And the vision for me is actually go beyond accounting, which is the world that we live in currently, and actually go into, well, we're building a playbook on how to build a successful remote company, right? So like I said, it started off with 2 co-founders, and now we're a team of 15 remote staff, and that's just going to grow over time. And we're currently in the process of working through and developing systems within the Bean Ninjas ecosystem, and products and things like that. And so now what you're looking at on the screen is essentially a newsletter, more of a magazine format, where I'm interviewing different experts in different aspects of remote businesses, like, you know, operations, finances, growth. So if you're looking at marketing and sales, so different areas. And these were the pillars of the summit. So when I looked at the summit, I actually crowdsourced through LinkedIn and different channels what people were interested in learning, and then that essentially became what was the content for the summit, and which is now becoming the content for the newsletter. And I'm putting out a weekly newsletter tackling each of these topics, and then building that list. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Now, here's the problem. Here's the challenge that I see. This works if people know who you are and they know what you do. This does not work for a cold audience. If I came here, I didn't know you, and even if I understood what remote business is, this is not enough information for me to make a decision, even to give you my email address. So a weekly newsletter to help you build a successful remote company faster. Does that mean the online entrepreneur that wants to build a location independent business? Does this mean the corporation that's now adjusting their team to remote work? I wouldn't know who this is exactly for. So you need some more clarity there as far as the copy on who is exactly your target. And then all of the different things that you said to me, even if you just went down here and you made a video that was you explaining what you just explained to me, I'd be able then to watch that video, and I would then have enough information for me to then give you my email address and to be a part of your team. Because as you know, nowadays people get like a lot of junk email. They sign up for lists, and like people are kind of over it. So I need more here explaining to me like what I'm going to get when I invest my email into this. And then that also starts the buying process in somebody's mind. And then you have a testimonial here, kind of a social proof. Do you mind if I share some of these resources on my net? What, like, is that a testimonial? What is that? Like, it's not really a testimonial, is it?
Well, it is and it isn't. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So yeah, if I didn't know you, I would be like, okay, why is this random person asking me this question on here? So even for the magazine, everything that you do in the business and everywhere that you go, you always want to optimize it for the cold person. The reality is in online business, people tend to assume that somebody knows who you are and they know what you do, and they don't optimize it for the cold person. And that's exactly what we need to do here, is we need to optimize it for the cold person. So if this is first, who is your target for this? Is it the online entrepreneur that wants to start a laptop business, or is this more for organizations?
It's more for organizations. So I would say it's going from, so a team of 4 to about 10 is the ideal fit for the kind of information that is presented here through the newsletter. And it's not for someone who is 500 staff. I think at that level, I'd have to get different experts involved, right? And the experts that I have involved are usually, I mean, some of them do work with the C-suite in large corporates, but that's not the audience. I think it's actually more mid-tier. When we did the So one of the things we did when I ran the summit was we actually surveyed the audience when they registered to understand, okay, who are you? Are you, like you say, are you someone who's just trying to build a location independent business, or are you working in a company that's remote? What's the, give us a bit of a profile. And what we saw was the majority of the audience were, it was split. So there were, one side was the sort of, I'm just building an agency, starting out, I want to do this thing. And then the other side was, we actually, I'm the HR manager inside of a team of 50 remote staff, right? And that's where I'm headed towards. And that's why the corporate sort of speaks to me, because that's actually where I can actually add value better than just someone who wants to be a nomad, for example.
Okay, so good. That's now you got clarity on what this is for. So also then messaging. So remote business success. Remote business is great. I'm not a fan of the word success, because a successful remote business can mean something different to every company. One company could just want to understand how to use the software. Another company could want to learn how to transition their team to fully online. So it's just a little too broad as far as the branding perspective. It's a little too broad. So I might consider something, adding another clarifier word that might work. That's neither here nor there, because you can work around that with good copy, but that's something to keep in mind. Now, if this is for corporations and corporate decision makers, and even mid-tier, like you said, privately held, let's say 15 to $100 million companies might be, they're transitioning their teams, this could be good for them. Again, this is also not enough information. So we need some copy here is what we need. We need a full landing page. And when I say full landing page, so it's a weekly newsletter that helps them build a successful remote team faster. Again, the language is too broad. But instead of just saying, hey, get a weekly newsletter, because weekly newsletter in of itself is not appealing if I don't understand who you are and the value of what you provide. Now, if I was Elon Musk and I had just a simple landing page and I said, get a weekly newsletter, would you sign up? Yeah, because
Sure.
you know who Elon Musk, like you're
Right
already
on.
convinced of the value. Now, for a cold audience perspective, if they're coming here and they're not convinced, they don't know who you are, they might not be convinced even a free weekly newsletter is of value, right? So instead of the weekly newsletter as your pitch, offer a lead magnet. So I'm sure in doing that summit, you probably have a lot of content on a lot of topics. So I would pull one of those, whether it's online software. Here's the 5 pieces of online software that every remote team needs. Get this free PDF. Sign up for the list, and you also be a part of the weekly newsletter. Now that approach, it would be a little, and then you put a little cover of that right here on the right. Or you can just, honestly, this graphic is probably just, it's fine as it is, but that's what I would entice them with. And then after that, I get rid of this testimonial, of course. I might consider then some copy, because from the cold person's perspective, they have to be convinced of the value of spending their time here, not money, their time. And so what you'd want is you'd want some copy that talked about remote business and the pain points that companies experience. So you would say something to the effect of, and I'm not a remote business expert, by the way, people at AMP, I'm not a remote business expert, but you would say something to the effect of, the world has shifted and changed. The way that we work and build a business has changed. Now, teams have to work from wherever they are. And while they're at home doing the tasks that you assign them in your business, they also have their kids who they're now homeschooling. They have TV, they have Netflix calling them, they have social media. They're in an environment where they are not contained anymore. There's distractions that could easily keep them off of track. Adjusting your team to this new reality is vitally important if you want to continue to grow your business. That's what we're here to do here at RBS Magazine. We're here to give you content, tools, and strategy that help you understand how to adjust your team to a new reality. And if you decide to keep your team in this new reality, we're going to empower you to make sure that you create a team of high performance that continue to grow your business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Spot on.
And you can use any of that, by the way. I'm recording this and you can use any of that. So what you would do is you then, after the lead magnet section on a landing page, I have a section which I like to call the pain point section, where you get into the pain point of the topic because you offer them a free guide that is relevant to them. Then you got into the pain point, demonstrating how what you teach could help them. Then after that, what I might consider after the pain point section is a little like strip or the logos of some of the organizations that you've worked with or worked for. Because what people fail to keep in mind is all your history is valid. So companies that you have done work for, entrepreneurs you've done work for, but also companies that you've worked at, because your work has impacted those companies even in an employee role. It's still valid. So with the logos that you have permission for, I would then have some sort of logos because then it's social proof. Then underneath that, then I would consider like the video we talked about. So welcome here, and then tell them exactly like the topics that are going to be covered. And then underneath that, if you want to write for publication, so that's one of your goals, right? Is to write for publications. Yeah. Guess what a publication editor is going to want to see?
Proof.
Articles, right?
Stories. Yes.
They're going to want to see articles. If you're trying to pitch a large publication and you have no written articles on your website, they're just going to delete your email. It's going to be that simple. So what you would have here is a blog previews post. So let me show you, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but let me show you our website, because the way that this is branded, I have a personal website, which is my name domain, and it's all about content marketing. But this is not where I would send companies. We would actually send companies to our agency website, which we do digital marketing, content marketing for organizations. Now, if you look here, I've done exactly what I told you to do. So lead magnet, right? Then the logos, then look content. This is what I'm talking about here, so that it's easily clickable. They can look at your content and get content on remote work. For publication, like you have a topic, transitioning organizations to remote business. That is great for places like Inc. It's great for Fast Company, Entrepreneur, Business Insider. You have a wonderful topic that will translate to all of these publications, but you're never going to get there if you don't have content on your own website that already shows it. So are you with me so far, or is this too much information?
100%. Yeah, man, no, I agree, 100%.
So then after that, you'd want to develop an about page, right? Because they want to know about you and about RBS Magazine. Like, how was this formed? Like what, and you told me how this was formed. So like that needs to go on the about page, and that needs to be clearly demonstrated in the about page. And then you said that you want to do corporate consulting. Guess what you're gonna need? A consulting page. Right? So here's the thing that happens with a lot of entrepreneurs, and it happened to me when I first started. I'll be the first one, for those that have followed me for a long time, and I know Amph and I have just connected. I didn't always have this beautiful corporate website or the beautiful personal website. I had a really ugly website, like for a long, it was like really ugly, and like my wife would tell you it was pretty bad. But I made it work because I had really good content on there. But here's the thing, for most of us, we build out platforms where we build out just enough so that it looks like a business card. And then we expect a company to come there and make a $45,000 decision based off a business card. It doesn't work, folks. And I'm not talking to Amph on this. I'm talking to everybody on this. It doesn't work when you build out a site that's pretty much just a business card. If somebody's going to make even like somebody wants to hire you as a coach, and they're going to make a $10,000 decision, they need enough information to make a buying decision. So we need a consulting page on here where we talk about remote work and how that helps organizations. So the structure of that consulting page. So I'll just show you an example of a consulting page. I'll show you a few examples here so you could actually see what this looks like. So I'm going to go here to one of my good buddies, and that's Bo Henderson. Oh, he actually changed the page. So, but you know, the structure is the same. So I'll actually look at ours because it's more organization based. So, you want to talk about the topic and why the topic is relevant. So why is remote business relevant? Well, it's very relevant, right? Like it's
Hmm.
very relevant to organizations right now. So that's the first section because you want to hit on content. Then you want to talk about social proof. So like you can do that easily with like a logo bar. And for those that are watching this that are like, well, I haven't worked with a bunch of organizations, don't freak out. You put whatever you have. And if you don't have any, don't put any at all, until you have some. You work with the best that you have. And then what are some of the things that you help businesses with when it comes to transition to remote? So I would guess software, I would guess tools, training. And by the way, feel free to jump in here with anything that you would like to add to this.
Yeah, no, those are right. So tools, training, culture is a big piece of it. Productivity, you talked about, people, mums and dads at home with distracted by kids and whatnot. So that's productivity is a huge topic in that space right now.
Cool. And then the different areas that you consult on, and then of course how they contact you. So to sum it up, you're going to optimize this landing page in the way that we talked about here with more information. Then you're going to add an about page and you're going to add a consulting page. Some people like to put contact pages. I'm not a fan of a contact page. Like you can put a contact box on the bottom of any website pages. But then you also need social media on here too, because we're in a social media world, right? Like, so you need some social media on the site. When it comes to social media, is it just your personal profiles?
Yeah, like I haven't set up all the pages for the magazine yet. I wanted to ask you a question around that because the way from what you're speaking of, it sounds like I probably would be better placed to have a website under my name and not remote business. Like that intention was and still is to have an ongoing newsletter that we publish, and that becomes just a channel for putting out content, and have CEOs on there and HR managers and people who are interested in that world. But to me, that's a separate place than having a consulting page, because the consulting would sit under, well, that's what Anthony offers, not necessarily what the magazine offers, because the magazine is still a magazine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what I would do then in that circumstance is I wouldn't do it under your name. I would do it under like an agency, like you're
Right.
a remote business agency. So you can call it RBS agency if you want to kind of keep the brand the same.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
what I would do. Yeah. And then I would set up that website here. And if you're just going to keep this the magazine, again, you're still going to need more information. Like I would keep the landing page exactly how we described it before. And then also for where would you send publication editors? Would you send them here or would you send them to the agency site?
I think the agency site would be more relevant.
Okay. So then, yeah, you'd want some content on here, but I would also still consider on this site, maybe putting a few, you don't have to post on here like weekly, but I'd put up like 3 samples. Like here's a sample of what the newsletter content looks like and give them a little sample. That's what I would do here.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. And then if I come to your page here, your Facebook page, so I would look at, so you got the company that you do some work for, cool. What's this? What's Founders Connect?
So Founders Connect is a project that my wife and I started about 2 years ago. And that was really the birth of what became Remote Business Summit. So essentially we wanted to offer a space to help entrepreneurs who are in relationships to work through the mental challenges and the relationship challenges that come with working with a spouse or a co-founder. And at the time when we were doing that, we were completely remote. So we were nomads, 18 months around the world, running my agency at the same time. So that was kind of what that project was. And that evolved into what is now RBS.
So then I would now start to incorporate some of the brands like the agency, whichever direction you have that on here. And then also your content. If this is your only profile that you have on here, and you still want to have content that is about remote business. Do you post about remote business anywhere?
That's more on Founders Connect. So if you, so that's a separate page. Yeah. So that's a series of interviews that we had with the experts who appeared on the summit, and that's a podcast that we have.
Okay, so you're gonna need more content. So podcast is a form of content, obviously. Um, this is also really good when you're connecting to the personal. But what we need more of is more expert content, like more how-to, more quick tips, more behind the scenes of what's going on, the things that hook people and make them want to be invested. And especially from the perspective of a publication editor or a corporate decision maker, they're going to want to know that you actually know what you're talking about. Your content is the way to do that. A lot of people like to say, I'm an expert at this, I'm an expert at that. And then they say, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. When the reality is if you put the good how-to content on there where you're educating them about your topic and you're giving away a little bit more, like a lot of people like to put the good stuff behind a paywall. And that's not to say you should give away everything for free, but you should give away more than you think and people will still pay you. Because in the online world, people put out just enough. That's all they do is they put out just enough. And the reality is you want to over deliver with your content. You and I connected because like somebody tagged you in one of my value posts, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so people were like, well, how could you put out that content? Because I have a lot more to say behind the paywall, right? And I suspect it's the same thing for you. There's a lot that you have to say with remote business. So that's what needs to be said on your personal page. And that's also what needs to be said here more than just interviews.
So the question I have around that is just the challenge with juggling a full-time role where, so if you look at my LinkedIn profile, all my content is related to that role, right? And that company. And not all of it is well, the topics primarily focus around financial literacy and bookkeeping and financial reporting, which is what the business does, and how we, right? So, yeah, I guess, how does that, how do I ensure that I'm doing enough of the RBS content in a way that it's not conflicting with the content I'm putting out around accounting, which is actually, I'm not an accountant, right? I'm just a community manager for an accounting firm, and a marketing sort of person. But that, so
So
yeah, I'd love to do what you're saying is like, just put out a ton of content around, building remote businesses and these sort of things, but that's going to then conflict people. Well, maybe it doesn't, but on my sense is,
no, because with your content with being ninjas,
yeah.
why is it being put out like on your personal LinkedIn? Like, why would it be put out on the Bean Ninja page? Bean Ninja's pages.
Yeah, because we myself and the other team members, we get a ton more organic reach through our profiles, interaction and engagement than we do through the company page.
Gotta build up the company page. And if you are going to do that, then kind of separate your platforms. So if it looks like LinkedIn is what you're using for Bean Ninjas, that's fine.
Correct.
But your Facebook Founders Connect and your Facebook Personal, you're not putting any of that content on there. You can still use those avenues for your agency and your magazine.
Mm.
And then also what you could do is you could form a separate page for RBS. RBS agency in the magazine. You could form that separate page, and that's where you're putting the good content on remote business. And that's also where you would send like publication editors and where you'd send corporate decision makers. Yeah. So completely separate page from that if you just want to use that for this. Right. And then even what I would tell you with Bean Ninjas. So like what types of video are people watching? Right? Like, and you want to grow your LinkedIn audience, like, and like, it's just not enough information. Like, it's not enough information for me even to click on a link, a bit.ly link that I don't even know where this is going to take me. And then the link in here is also going to decrease the organic reach anyways. Like the link, what you want to do here for the video is, I would instead of doing this, I would screenshot that. I would screenshot the actual page, and that's what I would upload here. And then I put the link in the comments. And if that's what you're going to do, that's going to increase the organic reach. And then also with LinkedIn, you got to use hashtags. Hashtags are how things found and how you can trend. So I would use the hashtags there. And so you got some content on here. So here, this is like more of what I'm talking about. So you have some content on here, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then you use the hashtags on here. That's more of what I'm talking about here. Here you did a free training screenshot. That's fine. What you would want to consider is for them and also for you is having a set content plan. Do you guys work with a content plan?
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying here is coming from the content plan. So there's specific themes and on certain days, and we map that out in advance, like 90 days cycles. So we've got events that we run, host on a weekly basis, and that's so the top post you're seeing is basically I'm testing a new tool, which is why it's not embedding the images. I actually had the image embedded, but it's not doing it, which sucks. But yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, cool. So we've established for those that have just joined this that AMF is going to probably more than likely form an agency for what he wants to do with remote business. His target is not the digital nomad. His target is actually the company that has to transition their team. And it's more of a, I would say, privately held company that has to transition their team because it would be hard to do it for like, IBM or Disney or something like that. But you're looking more for that mid-tier company. You're going to establish an agency for that. You're going to build it out. We talked about like what should go on each of those pages. The most important thing we've talked about, and that anybody's watching this that could take away, is that you always have to optimize for the cold audience. The person that comes here, they have no clue who you are. They can come here and identify the topic and want to know more. That's the most important part of this equation. So your homework, AMF, is to get that agency, whatever you're going to call it. You could call it RBS agency if you want to keep the branding the same, or call it whatever you want to call it. Get that set up. So that's the legal structure, whatever you're required to do there in Australia to get a business legally registered and set up. Then it's securing the domain. If you haven't looked at domains right now already, securing that domain. And then it's starting to build out the site with a homepage, an about page, a blog page, because you need ongoing content, and then a consulting page, and fully develop those out in the structure that we talked about. Then coming back here to RBS Magazine, and he's building the magazine, but you still need more information for people to decide to opt into this magazine and get the content. And we talked about the changes that you want to make there. Then as far as social media goes, it's posting more value, how to, behind the scenes, lives, like just more a variety of content that's more than just interviews. You want to show the full range of what you do. Like every week for anybody that develops content, every week you want to incorporate lives, you want to incorporate stories, you want to incorporate how-to, you want to incorporate motivational posts, you want to incorporate expert content, and then you also want sales posts. So 6 different types of posts that you want every single week, and that's what's going to help you build your audience on social media. And then on LinkedIn, we talked about establishing a separate page for the agency so that it doesn't conflict with what AMF does with Bean Ninjas. Those are the changes we talked about so far. So that's what we have in the foundation phase of this. That's putting your foundation together. Then once you've built your foundation together, it's really starting to build and it's starting to scale. So that would be incorporating things like podcast interviews, and that would be doing things like publications. So have you ever been interviewed on a podcast?
Yeah, many times.
Many times? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, and what did you talk about in those shows?
Well, when I ran my agency, I talked a lot about content. So a lot of it was my couple angles were around so repurposing content was a topic that people were interested in. I also talked about leadership, and because I used to manage a team of 10 staff for HP when I was in a specific department. So I talked about how that translates to being an entrepreneur. So Yeah.
And do you have the links to all those interviews?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Okay, good. And for those that don't know how to get on podcasts, you want to get on a podcast and you want to talk about your topic, there's a couple lists that you could sign up for. So radio guest list is one where you sign up and every day they send you a digest of radio shows and podcasts that are looking for guests. It's a free resource that anybody can use. Another one, and there's a lot of resources like this, is Podcast Guest with an S. Same situation. You sign up for free and they're going to send you a digest of shows that are looking for guests. Now, when you respond to these, you respond with what specific value you would add to the podcast. Not like a lot of people want to respond and they want to puff their chest. I'm not saying AMP to do that, but typically that's the typical responses, right? Like, I'm so great, I'm industry leader, yada, yada, yada. Instead, you want to respond with, here's a specific value I can add on your podcast, and get into that specific value. That's what you want to respond here with. And you can get on some shows and talk specifically about remote business. Another one, which most people probably know about, but I'm not going to assume, which is the Horror Reporter. Have you ever heard of this, Amph?
Yes, I have. Help a reporter out.
Yeah, so you sign up as a source, and there's a lot of major media here. It's a digest that comes to you 3 times a day, and it's just a lot of content. Like, sometimes I'm just deleting the emails. I'm like, I can't even keep up with this, but it's good because there's a lot of good opportunities. I've responded to these, and I've gotten on major media. So there's a lot of really good opportunity. I love this because even if you're a rookie, you have a chance to get into major media, which this is the reason why I love this. Now, that's podcast. As far as articles published, have you been published anywhere online?
Yeah, I used to be a contributor for Huffington Post before they changed their contributor policy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used to write quite a lot, but dialed that down since then.
Yeah, they shut down that platform. And that platform kind of got out of control. Like, they just let anybody do anything in there, which is why, and then they insult. Now, since you wrote for the Huff Post, are you familiar with Thrive Global?
Yes, I've got an account on there, but I haven't written, again,
Guess
my
what we need
challenge
to do,
is
yeah. Guess what we need to do?
I don't know, get a second person to write my stuff, because I've just got to hire my agency.
Well, if you're looking for content, like, let's say you can't do it on your own, there's a lot of options when it comes to outsourcing content. Now, I'm a purist, so like the thought of outsourcing content, like it gives me the heebie-jeebies. But that's just me, like, because writing is something that I love and content is something that I love. There's a lot of options like this. Here's an agency from a conference that my wife was at that we actually saw. They do good work, and their prices are fairly reasonable when it comes to industry standards. So they'll tell you like how much it costs, and their prices are very reasonable. Like, for those of you that are like, I don't know if I can afford that. And I'm not saying this for AMP, because AMP is a professional, but you see here these prices from where they're starting at. Like, most people can afford this, right? Like, yeah. So there's options as far as outsourcing content goes, because I hear what AMP is saying. He's saying, look, I already create a lot of content for the agency that I'm a part of, right? And then I'm talking about creating content for the magazine, and now for this consulting agency. It's a lot of content. I get it. It's a ton of content. I get it. But you can outsource it. So what I would tell you to do is, you already have the account set up. Remote teams is a great topic for Thrive Global. Get a couple pieces published here, even if you have to repurpose, like maybe something that you sent to the magazine. Because at Thrive, they will let you do repurposed.
What about interviews so say I get on a bunch of interviews and I talk about remote businesses on those interviews as a guest, repurposing that into articles for Thrive and other places?
You can't repurpose if you're writing it out, yes, because they want articles, but they're not going to let you repurpose the audio or video if it's video.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just getting someone
Yeah.
else, whether it's me or someone on my team, just to go, okay, extract, because the ideas come out in when I speak. I speak much better than when I write, and it's more how do I build that engine, so to speak, rather than because I honestly finding time to sit down and spend 3 hours to write a really epic article is not going to happen anytime soon, and I think that's the challenge with that.
So you know what I'm going to tell you to do, and this is a tip for anybody else because a lot of people don't want to sit there and write for 3 hours. There's a lot of software like Dragon Dictate.
Otter,
Is
yeah.
Yeah. So talk to text. For those of you that don't have time, and I've had clients that have written entire books just with talk to text. Talk to text, you hire somebody to clean it up. They'll clean it up for you. And then you have articles that you literally just speak out while you're driving or you're walking or whatever, or you're busy, then you don't have to sit there and you don't have to write it all out. So that's what I would tell you to incorporate too. But
Love
as
it.
far as going back to what you said, repurposing the interviews, yes, some publications will allow that. I would say the lower tier of publications are going to allow that. Once you start getting to your entrepreneurs, your Business Insider, your Forbes, they're not going to allow that at all. So you're going to want to stay away from that.
And what are your sort of suggestions around finding, obviously remote business is hot, but there's also, there's a ton of people and companies talking about it right now, right? So,
Yeah.
so how do I differentiate and say, okay, well, you know, I'm not just another person talking about remote businesses, but, you know, how can I guess that's the $1 million question here is from a branding perspective or a, you know, why would a publication be interested in that, or why would a corporate want to hire me to consult them if they're evaluating against others, right?
Because at the end of the day, there are corporations that are going to go with Accenture or Price, Waterhouse Coopers, or some of the large firms, right? Those are larger companies. But at the end of the day, they don't get the kind of service that they're going to get from hiring a boutique consulting firm. There was, before Hertz filed for bankruptcy, there was this big lawsuit that they filed with Accenture because they hired Accenture to build their website and they paid them $32 million. And guess what? Accenture didn't build the website. Yeah. So like there's a lot of companies that have experienced that where they do hire the big firms and they don't get the personal touches, the personal attention. They don't get the person that's hungry for their business. So that's why they go smaller and they hire boutique, because they want better customer service. And at the end of the day, you're going to be a lot more nimble than a big consulting firm is going to be. So that they hire small boutique consultants, individual consultants all the time versus a big firm, because we're just in a different time. Now, why do they want to hear about this content? Big companies are used to doing what they do. They might even have people on staff that understand remote business and understand transitioning, but they don't respect those people on staff. They respect the outside expert. One, and then two, big companies do what they do to continue to keep the train moving. So instead of stopping the train to figure out this new thing, they bring in outside experts to get them caught up to speed. So yeah, those are the reasons why like your topic and everything you do is still going to translate. So Thrive Global, get some remote business content published, because a large publication editor is going to want to see where you've been published online in addition to blog content. So I'll tell you this for all of those that are watching this. The first thing that a large publication editor is going to do is they're going to look at your blog. And if you don't have fresh content on your blog, it's a DQ. They're going to delete the email because they're going to think large publications don't want a one-hit wonder. They don't want somebody that's going to come in, contribute once, and then disappear. They want somebody that's going to be a consistent contributor and that's going to contribute all the time. So when they don't see it on your blog, it's an instant DQ. So that's the first place to do, is your blog. Then they're going to look at where else have you been published. So if that's Thrive Global, If it's Medium, they're going to look at your LinkedIn to see what kind of articles you have on LinkedIn, which is why I was looking at Amph's LinkedIn earlier. And what he decided was he's going to probably have to separate that from what he does at his role. Get some articles published. And again, you can repurpose your articles from your blog to LinkedIn to thrive. Like, so we're not talking about a bunch of different articles in a bunch of different places at this level. Then there's other sites you can get into Amph, like business to community is one that you can go here and you apply. So you're not putting a full article. And this is a good place for you to talk about remote work. Business.com, that's another really good website that you could do. Lifehack.org is another one that you can do. And these are, I'm thinking of specifically places for Amph where he could come in and he can talk about remote business and remote work and all that stuff. For everybody else, there's a lot of other sites like Addicted Success and Influencive and Tiny Buddha and a lot of other multi-author websites that don't require you to have a whole bunch of stuff published for you to get in and to get accepted. So that's why we're starting at this level. We look at publications as kind of 4 levels. Like the first level is the multi-author website, your platform. Next level up from that would be Entrepreneur, Business Insider, Forbes, because those places require some social proof, but not as much as then the next level, like Success on Demand, and then Fast Company, and then last level being like Inc. and Time, New York Times, stuff like that. Once you get to that higher level, if you haven't been published on any big sites, they're not going to give you the time of day. So you want to take this up a level. Like this level right here, you can get published in a lot of places. That's going to give you the social proof then to keep moving up and keep moving up. Make sense?
Yeah. So well, I was going to ask, if the goal is to get to Inc., and it is one of my goals, how long, like in terms of frequency, what should I be aiming for in terms of how much content do I put out, on a monthly basis, to then get to, pitching an editor or whatever it may be to get into Inc. Realistically, how long, well, maybe it's hard to answer, but on average, what have you seen in terms of being able to starting from today to how long before I can even, that's an option for me?
Well, you could be pitching Inc. in like 2 weeks if you were really aggressive, right? Like, but at the end of the day, it's not about like the amount of content that you put out. It's about where you've been published and how you've established your expertise. So even if, let's say, you only had 6 pieces of content on your own platforms, but then you were published on Thrive and Entrepreneur, and then you also had a defined website, you can be an expert. Large, like a place like Inc., they don't want to know that you can just write on your topic. They want to know that you're an established entrepreneur, an expert on your topic. That's the big thing. So if they came to Inc. and they saw no website, guess what? They're not going to accept you. It's that simple. Or if they came to your website and the topic and the branding and the messaging wasn't clearly defined, showing your expertise in a clear way that's optimized for cold traffic, they're not going to accept you. And that's why I say you, I mean, not only Amph, I mean anybody. If you don't have your website in line and it's not showing your expertise, a place like Inc. and Entrepreneur, they don't just want somebody that can write, they want established experts. Because think about the logic of them putting you on their website. When they put you on their website, they're vouching for you. That's essentially what they're doing, is they're vouching for you. So if they want to vouch for you, they want somebody that's actually an expert in what they talk about. So to answer your question, Amph, it could be really quick if you did a lot of work in a short amount of time. What you'd have to do is get the website up and running to be fully established, as we talked about. Get at least 4 blog posts on there, get published on Thrive, and then like 3 other websites. You'd want to come to Inc. with like at least 4 external websites besides your own. Get those all up and running, and then you'd be in a position to pitch Inc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so it's not so much about the volume of content that you're putting out. It's about the places where you're putting out content. And it's a shame, like I'm out of coffee. That's like a shame. And I was like, it's like mid 1 a.m. He's like, I don't want to do coffee. So for those that are joining, drop a live, drop a replay. Sarah says, morning, Sarah. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about, like you guys have kind of been quiet, don't hesitate to ask any questions about, not specifically about AMP if you don't want to, but more so about publications and platforms and all that kind of stuff. All right, so now what we've talked about here is we've talked about the stabilizing. Stabilizing would be establishing that foundation, and it would be continuing to. So now when it comes to generating revenue, specifically AMP, you could technically generate revenue by, like, maybe with the magazine, you could charge different subscription levels. Like a lot of publications do this. They'll let you read the free version, and then for $5 a month, they'll give you like an ad-free experience. And then for $10 a month, you get one, you know, there's a lot of ways that you could monetize a magazine to where you're just doing it free, then you're doing an ad-free experience, then you're doing the content ad-free along with a once a quarter training. And then you could even have a high level, which is all of that plus like a coaching session with you twice a year. And you could charge X number of dollars per month. So that's a quick way that you can monetize. Have you explored any of that?
Yeah, I've been looking at sort of a couple of options around advertising. So building the audience. So using what you're saying, putting this into practice, building that foundation, having, you know, being published in different places, and then sort of building that expertise and people understand that's what ANF does, and then driving that into, you know, the lead magnet and building that audience, and then going to companies that who software companies or whoever it might be that I work with and trust, and then say, okay, well, do you have an affiliate program or something like that that I can refer? So that's one sort of revenue stream. And then going up to running workshops, and I mentioned that at the beginning of this call, that is sort of where I want to get to, is to say, well, hey, you know, I write about this stuff, but also, you know, I can actually deliver training around, you know, productivity and even technologies training, because I've got a lot of background in different tools that we use remotely. So using Slack and using different sort of things for culture. So that's something that I could go in and offer as a workshop or a consultation.
So the quickest path to revenue for AMP specifically is, one, he could monetize the magazine with different offers. It could just be ads, or it could be the different package levels to join the magazine. The Good Men Project does this. I used to be an editor at the Good Men Project for over a year, and they're a magazine. You've heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is exactly what they do. Like, you can join at different levels. Like, even if you want to submit content here, they would tell you at the different levels that you can join. So like premium memberships, yada, yada, yada. That's one. And then another thing that you could probably do right now, if you establish the website and you put all the information we're looking about, you could offer yourself as like an executive coach to executive leaders at these teams on coaching them on what they need to know as far as being a remote leader and setting it all up. That's a quicker path than actually booking a gig with the company, right? Because there's considerations there. But you can definitely coach some executives, and that's an audience and a target that you can book pretty quickly right now.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that one. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's the route. Like, if we're talking about the quickest path to revenue, and a lot of times people are like, well, how do I get to the money? Like, and I get it, you got bills to pay. It's going that route of, some people do coaching online with individuals. We're talking about here AMP coaching executives. A lot of executives right now are looking for coaching. So you could find that path. One simple thing that you can do. And of course, this is like later on down the line, folks. We're talking about after AMP has already established himself, and he's already gotten everything in place that we're talking about here. One thing that you can do is you can come over here to these job boards, and you can type in the term. So like executive coach is one thing that you can do. So, and you'd see a lot of these organizations that are specifically looking for executive coach. Now, some of them want somebody that's going to be on staff. That's obviously not what you're trying to do. But the approach that you can make is, you can say, hey, I see that you're trying to hire for this position. You can use my agency or myself as kind of a way to bridge the gap while you're looking for the right employee. It's going to give you the flexibility, and I can give you the training that you need in the meantime. You're offering to fill a gap, or you could offer yourself as like a 1099. That's the US term, you're in Australia, but offer yourself as like a freelancer, so to speak, so that they're not paying all the things they would normally pay with an employee. and it's an attractive option. So there's a lot of this that you can book right now, and you could actually book quicker. And then you could even look for, remote. And you would find like a lot of remote type situations that are on here. And again, you're making that approach of, hey, I'm going to be more cost effective than employee. And you can start pitching a lot of gigs quicker with this. Make sense?
Yeah, I like that. That's really cool.
But again, this is, you're probably looking at all this like, this is like a lot of work, dude.
It is, but if you want to get success, you got to do it. Like, what are you going to do? You can't avoid it.
That's right. So the approach that I would take is to first get all the foundational stuff in line. I would then start targeting some of those lower tier publications and getting yourself established there. That's going to give you the ammo to go after the higher tier. And then simultaneously, while I'm doing that, I would also go after either monetizing that magazine, or if you didn't want to go that route, just get in some executive coaching. Because the reality is, with executive coaching, how many executives would you need to book to make a real difference? Just one, right? If one executive hired you and he's paying you $5,000 to $10,000 a month, that'd make a difference in your life, wouldn't it?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So you don't need 100. Everybody always looks at this and they're like, oh, I got a book. No, you don't need 100. You just need one, folks. And then once you get the one, you get the second one. And then by the time you get the third one, you're at capacity. So this is totally within your reach to book that one to get some of that revenue established. That gives you breathing room. Then you can reinvest it into the business in hiring a content writer for you or content creator to free up some of your time and all that good stuff.
Man, it's so cool, dude. I'm glad I'm awake at 1 o'clock.
And I get that this is a lot of everybody. What I'm talking about here is things that AMF is going to implement over the next months, next 3 to 6 months. And we're talking about it in an hour session. So I get it's a lot of things in a short amount of time. But the beauty of this is I'm recording this, and AMF is then going to be able to look at this recording. I'm going to send it to him, obviously, and he's going to be able then to watch this recording and then take it step by step. So for those of you that are watching, they're like, yeah, I'm kind of on a similar path. Don't get frustrated thinking you have to do all this by tomorrow. You don't. You just have to do this one step at a time. And for most of the people that's watching this, it's getting your foundation, your website, your social media presence, building up that email list established. That's where most people are at. Because if you can do that step, you have everything you need then to go after publications and corporate opportunities. Because AMF knows this, we don't lack for opportunities. There's more than enough corporations that would hire anybody that's watching this as a freelancer, as a content creator, as a coach, as a consultant, even as a speaker. We don't lack for leads. There are more than enough publications out there that would bring you in and let you create content for them. It's not the leads that we lack, it's the entrepreneurs that show those leads why they should pick them. That's the issue. That's where the rubber meets the road. And all of the things we've talked about here in this session are all the things that get you to that point. So questions on anything we've covered so far,
Amp? Still processing. My brain's going like 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. You showed me your agency site, and you also showed me your site, which has got your name, right? Advantage of doing both in that way, because I'm just going through my brain, do I send a publication to the agency site, or do I send it to a site with my name on it? What's the difference between those two different sites?
So here's the difference. It all comes down to who you're targeting, whether you want to establish a your name domain or agency. If you want to go after the corporate market, we're always going to recommend people do an agency, because at the end of the day, even if you're a small boutique agency, who does a corporation want to hire? A boutique agency or somebody that feels like a solopreneur? It's that bigger feel that you're going for, even if you're a smaller agency, if that's your market. I have a personal website because I also have B2C customers. So for people that want to get in publications, that want to book corporate content creation, that's not my corporate audience. That's a separate audience. So the way that you determine how you set up your platform, it comes down to your customers. So if you ever, Anf, personally wanted to go after the digital nomad audience, like you want to get that audience, then you'd have a personal website in your name. If you only wanted to go after businesses with remote teams, then you wouldn't worry about that. So it depends on who you want to target.
Yeah.
And so for those that have businesses in both, you might have to separate, might be able to make it work in one platform if the message is cohesive. I could not make it work in one platform because a corporation is not going to want to know how to book corporate content creation, right? Like it doesn't work. So we separate the platforms that way. But if I could have made that message work, like let's say you did digital marketing, you taught entrepreneurs and organizations digital marketing, you could get those on one platform. Let's say you taught conflict resolution, you could get those on one platform. So it really depends on your message.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, it's much simpler to have one audience, one message, one platform. Because once you start to blend, it gets really confusing for the different audiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's where a lot of people run into trouble is they are trying to blend too many things on one platform and then somebody doesn't know what they do. So like they'll have a page that says, I help you with your relationships. There's a page that says, I help you with digital marketing. Just because you use digital marketing to build your relationship website doesn't mean somebody's going to see you as a digital marketing expert. So that's why that message has to be clear for a cold audience. So Bernard asked a question, how do you build up a Facebook business page? I have traffic on my personal. Do I use both pages? It depends on what you're going to do. So Facebook business pages are good. If you want to go after the corporate market, it would be good to have a business page and then to see you posting B2B type content on there. If you have individual clients, the B2C market, you're selling courses and coaching, all that. Honestly, the best way to build up that page is paid advertising. Like I hate to say it, but it's just the truth. The organic reach on a business page is nothing. And you can pay a couple, you're not talking about a terrible amount of money, especially right now. Paying for advertising to your webinars and to your lives and to your content is just the best way to do it. And then of course, good engaging content once they get there. So, and then Edie Berg says, hey, what's going on, Edie? So, yeah, these are just right. So, Amph, how's your mindset?
Strong, man. Like I'm just, going back to foundations. I see it. Yeah. Everything you said has been spot on. I think it's, I need to sleep and dream about some of this, and then I'll come back and listen to this again and just write down the game plan, and I'll start knocking those off and I'll come back to you and go, hey, this is what's been happening.
So after you've established that foundation, you're going to go after some publications. When you go after these bigger publications, it's actually not complicated. All these big publications, they have a person that's on their staff that deals with contributors, that deals with digital content. That's actually the person that you would pitch. And that person then is going to look at your social proof. When you do a pitch like this, just keep in mind, Amph, that you're never going to submit a full article to a place like this. Give them ideas for things that you'd want to pitch about. Now, one thing we haven't covered, like let's say you found a publication or you found a corporate opportunity that you wanted to pitch. There's a couple of resources that you could use. One I always recommend is hunter.io. They give you 100 free searches on here. And what you could do is you could put in any company or any publication, and I'm actually out of free ones, by the way, people. That's how much I pitched. I'm out of free ones. But you could put in the company URL, and they're going to kick out all the email addresses that they have in the structure, and you can search for somebody specific. The structure is more important because if you know the structure that a company uses, like first name dot last name, that would give you all the information that you need. So you could use Hunter to find email addresses. Then you could use a tool like TrueMail. Oh, I spelled it wrong. TrueMail.io to help you verify that you actually have the right email address. And then if you wanted to find who you would pitch at a company, so let's say it was, we'll do this company right here. We know this company over here is looking for something remote. You can go to their company page on LinkedIn, and you can look at the people, and it's going to tell you all of the people that work there, and you're going to find the person that you can pitch. So at a company like this, where it is owner owned, you're going to be pitching either the founder or the co-founder. Like you can pitch either one of these people, and like this is who you'd pitch. As far as finding their email address, I've already showed you, I have the Hunter extension on here. If I actually had searches left, I'd show you that I could find his email address pretty easily. But let's say I could not find it in any of these places. Something simple you could do is you could look at the name of the company, and then you could put in email format. And Rocket Reach is another really good tool that's going to tell you the format that they use, and they're going to give you a percentage. And they're going to see 23% of the emails on the server are using this format. Then you just go plug in the person's name, and boom, then you would have their email address. So you could do that for any type of company. If I wanted to do Disney, I'll do that. And I
didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri, you're not invited. If I wanted to do the Disney, for example, Disney, 100% of their emails are first name dot last name at Disney. So I could type in any executive that I had found that I was trying to pitch. So let's say I did want to pitch Disney. And I went to their page, and let's say I want to do something for remote work for AMP. The title that you'd probably look up, you'd look at the person that handles training. So like, training development manager, that might be it. Training coordinator. So here's training coordinator. This is the person that does all the training. So if I wanted to get the email address, I already know it's a first name dot last name. And then I could go in and I could test that, and boom. So like, people think that finding email addresses is the hard part of this. It's not. The leads are not the hard part. Finding the email address is not the hard part. Actually creating the pitch is not even that hard. The hard part is showing them why they should give you the time of day. And everything we've talked about in session here is how AMP is actually going to do that. So I've just thrown a bunch of extra resources at you.
Amazing, just amazing.
Oh, you cut out there.
No, I said you're amazing.
I don't have your sound.
Hello.
Oh no, I think your microphone is dead.
No, it's working. It's working. Hello.
Nope, still can't hear you.
Hello.
Oh, I see you moving now.
Okay. Hello.
I'm not hearing you. Why did it choose now? Difficulties with the sound.
What's going on? Testing. Weird.
Speak for me, Amph.
Hey man, those Walt Disney email
still
addresses
not hearing you.
look interesting.
Let me just verify that it's not me.
Hello.
Those that are watching this, I hope I've established that the foundation is a crucial part of this, especially optimizing for that code, because actually finding opportunities is not too complicated. So I just want to verify that it's, oh, you can hear him. So then it is me. Okay. I'll stick in some headphones here. Maybe my sound went on my end.
Hello.
Yeah, so it is on my end. Okay, cool. So we're back.
All good.
So yeah, I just threw a bunch of tools at you now as well.
Rocket Reach.
Yep.
So good, man.
Cool. So any final questions here about anything that we've covered in like this hour and 15 minutes we've been together? I know that was a lot of information thrown at you.
No other questions. I think I just need to process, and then yeah, like ton of gold there. I really appreciate it. Command like Z. Oh my gosh, my brain's falling asleep. Um, yeah, no other
Okay.
questions at this point.
So for anybody that has been watching this or just hopped on, do you have any questions about, is anybody that has any final questions about anything we've covered? Because we covered a ton. And the first question is probably going to be, is there going to be recording this? Yes, we were recording this. It's on a Facebook Live, so it'd naturally be recording, but we also recorded on Zoom. And I'm going to send this to AMP. And then I'm also going to upload this to my blog as well. Because guess what? This is content.
Hell yeah.
You know how that works? Cool.
Showing us how it's done, man. Love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm glad. Thanks so much for volunteering to do this.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for giving us the opportunity. And yeah, definitely anyone who's not listening to what you're saying, they need to be listening. And I've been referring people to you because it's like, this guy knows his stuff, and really appreciate it.
Cool. Well, I'm going to let you get some sleep there in Australia. It's like, what is it, 1 a.m., past 1 a.m.?
Yeah, 1:20 now.
1:20 a.m. now. So this is good. Use this. Let us know how it goes. Like, update me on what you're working on, so that I want to see that you actually took action on this, and so that we can celebrate you when you get published and you book some clients and all that good stuff.
Will do, brother. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good night. And thank you so much for everybody that joined us here on this Facebook Live. And we're going